Adam, if industrial design were lawn ornaments, you'd be a plastic flamingo.
You'd be a headless Santa. Welcome to Engineer vs. Designer.
The podcast.
For product designers, engineers, makers, geeks, freaks, and people who like wallpapering their bedrooms in caution tape.
Oh, yeah.
My name is Adam, industrial designer of CAD Junkie.com.
And my name is Josh, mechanical engineer of SolidSmack.com.
Each week's show is broken into 3 brain-throbbing halves. First, we're going to serve up the top product design stories from this week's news, courtesy of SolidSmack.com.
Followed by techie tips, tricks, and Q&A compliments of CADJunkie.com.
And finally, we're going to talk with special guest Joe Moak, senior product design engineer and founder of FormLovesFunction.com.
Joe Moak, it's an honor to have you with us today. If you could sculpt the moon into the bust of any celebrity, who would it be?
Charlie Sheen, of course.
Okay, Joe, stay put. We're going to be hearing more from you as the show goes on. Josh Mings of SolidSmack.com, the time has come for you to siege the gates of ignorance with your massive mental battering ram. What have you got for us this week?
Well, this week's SolidSmack update is brought to you by SolidWorks 2012. 3D for professionals. Juicy new features like real-time costing and large design review are already helping designers make better, more informed design decisions. Get the full scoop at solidworks.com/launch. Look out, render freaks. Bunkspeed has released Bunkspeed Pro 2012. This combines Bunkspeed shot rendering and Bunkspeed move animation into one GPU-loving interface. This integrates NVIDIA's Iray technology into both tools and allows advanced features like displacement mapping, photometric lights, and more keyframe animation options. It comes in pretty steep, though, with a $34.95 price tag.
ShapeSpace is creeping their way deeper into 3D search. The company creating the software that allows you to visually search your solids and surfaces continues to work data delivering deals, the latest of which will find their technology serving up geometry in the Actify portfolio of product collaboration tools later in 2011. 3D search, baby. Look, Ma, we are in the future.
Whew. Carol Bartz, former CEO of Autodesk, is now the former CEO of Yahoo. A controversial 19-month reign of Bartz was ended with a phone call from the board chairman letting her in on the news. They passed on a sweet offer from Microsoft back in 2008, and they've all but put up the for sale sign after this shakeup. But really, who would want to buy a company that puts the "ya" in who?
We've all seen yuppie designer boys obsessing over every possible use of a shipping container, from disaster shelters to full-fledged prefab office buildings. Well, SkyPak is now repurposing airplane trolley carts for use as ultra space-efficient furniture in tiny urban dwellings.
Nice.
Google Core 77 SkyPak to check it out.
And BIS Publishers released Open Design Now, a book that hopes to do for industrial design what the open source movement did for software engineering. We've seen enough of these movements come and go to maintain a healthy skepticism, but we'd love to be wrong, and it's a great gesture nonetheless.
So if I'm really interested with the SkyPak thing, repurposing these airplane trolley carts as hipster furniture. I just think, we hear about this kind of stuff all the time. It's kind of kitschy, kind of fun. But there's this big movement lately of people talking about reusing old stuff as if it were recycling, as if that's the responsible green thing to do. And I don't know if I agree with that philosophy, but I would love to talk to you guys about that a little bit.
I think it's great. I mean, there are very few materials that are actually recyclable. Most of them are actually downcycled. So
Sure.
if there's an opportunity to take, something that someone has already paid a bunch of money to tool up and build and distribute, and you can take that thing as it is and do something else with it immediately without having to run it through additional processes. That seems like a pretty good use of material in kind of a global responsibility sense. And man, if you get some hipster cred out of the whole process, I mean, seems like maybe a bonus or maybe a minus, depending on who you are.
Yeah, I actually love this idea. I come from the aviation background, so I had to deal with these carts all the time. The thing is, though, these things get the hell beat out of them. So so trying to repurpose them in themselves is just a task. So credit for that, for getting them working again, because really just be easier to get new ones and slap some skins on them and stick them in your apartment. But I mean, they look nice. They're small. They're easy to move around.
So I've also heard a lot of people in the past talk about why is the software movement so open, and why is the design movement so closed? And I just wonder what the mentality difference is that leads to that.
Yeah, I would say that it's just their own personal interest. They want to get recognition or paid for what they want to do. They're already, especially if they're independent designers, they tend to, you're making quotes on stuff and you're already stretched thin by the demands of the client.
Well, I think programmers would argue that they're busy too.
They would, but I think it's a stereotype for sure. There are people out there who will design icons, and actually I think some of the open source software has some pretty nice UI elements to it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are people that are doing it.
So would you guys as engineers, would you work on an open source engineering project where you're giving away your invention ideas?
Yeah, I mean, depending on, the scope of the project and, like, the final goal. Like, if it was something that was, worthwhile for, humanity or whatever, I could see throwing in some time. But I'm not down with helping somebody design a widget that they think is going to make them gazillions of dollars for free.
It's becoming easier to think about, to be part of, like, a group collaboration effort in engineering that you don't have to worry about someone stealing your design because you're all working together on a design, and people are interested in what you're doing, and you're being part of something. So that's attractive. That's starting to become more attractive to more people, I think.
Hey, wait, Josh, is that your kid in the background?
Yeah. Oh my! Hey, what? Get that out of your system! What? Get it out of now.
Okay, we're gonna be right back.
Oh, goodness. It's all over the place. Adam O'Hearn of CADJunkie.com. I hear the phones of CAD Junkie HQ have been ringing off the hook this week. What have you got for us?
Well, this week's CAD Junkie Q&A is brought to you by SOLIDWORKS 2012. More than a CAD package with rippin' fast performance enhancements and an all-new equation editor.
He loves that new equation editor.
It's kind of sad how much I love it. Check it out at solidworks.com/launch. So, we have another question this week, but first I want to test those brain muscles a little bit. I've got 3 questions for you. The first person to answer correctly gets a point. The first 2 out of 3 will be our winner. You ready to play?
Yes.
All right. We all know that early computers were programmed using punch cards with patterns of holes in physical cards used to communicate with the computer, but punch cards had been used for human-machine interaction before number-crunching computers were even invented. Where did the idea of using punch cards to communicate with machines come from?
Punching people in the face.
No idea. Music boxes?
Actually, that's a great idea. I don't know if a music box came first. The answer that I was going for was looms for weaving.
Oh, it's so obvious.
Interesting.
You used, I know, you used a punch card to allow the needle to go through in some areas, but then block it in other areas, and that would create your pattern.
How clever!
I like it.
Very clever. All right, 0 points for both of you. So one of you better get these these next couple. All right. Multiple choice on this one, though. So one of the earliest programming languages was IBM's Fortran, which was actually a contraction of formula translation, because it was one of the first languages to fully abstract the machine code instructions into human-readable text. Fortran was developed in what year? Was it 1954, 1960, or 1966?
Riveting question. I would say 1960.
50. I'm going 54.
You got it, man. Joe is up 1. Question number 3. In 1953, Grace Hopper at Remington Rand suggested that perhaps computer languages should be written in English rather than random numerical computer codes, and they said she was crazy.
Crazy.
By 1958, she and her team had released the first ever version of their business-oriented computer language called what? Was it A, Flowmaster, B, Flowmatic, or C, Flowmotion?
I was going to go with COBOL.
That's actually a very good guess because it was the lead-in to COBOL. COBOL was designed after this one.
I'm going to go Matic. It seems like a Matic decade that it was designed in.
All right.
I'm thinking master, the master language for the
You would think that, and you would be wrong. Joe Moak, you are this week's champion.
Oh, come on.
That computer language was called Flowmatic.
Hi, this is Cindy again, like from last week. So anyway, the jewelry thing didn't totally work out, but I think it's okay because now I'm gonna start doing hair, I think. So I was wondering if maybe you knew like something that could make it easier for me to, not mess up people's hair. Because I cut my dad's hair the other day, and I mean, it looks really good. Well, I mean, it would have looked good if like he was 9 and he cut it himself. So I was like, oops. So thanks again, I guess. Okay, bye.
Okay, we've been talking to Cindy the last couple of weeks. Cindy is, she's Cindy, and she has failed with her jewelry business from last week, and this week she's decided to get into doing hair. She's gone to cosmetology school and did a disastrous haircut this last week and wants to make sure that doesn't happen again. So I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the ways she might possibly avoid making mistakes, in the future with her haircutting. We're going to bring haircutting into the industrial 21st century for a little bit here.
What does this have to do with anything?
First of all, Joe Moak, you are really into CNC machining. Is CNC haircutting in her future?
Could be. I just designed it in my head. CNC haircut.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
Are you going to make it open source? Because
Absolutely. I'm just seeing one of those mounted on a 6-axis robot arm.
Oh yeah, just lay down underneath this milling machine here and get your scalp drilled. Would you like a paraffin dip with that?
Okay, so there are so many options for Cindy. First of all, she could do mock-ups where she just puts wigs on people and cuts the wigs first, right? Which is a little bit limiting, but, you could do some stuff with that. It'd be kind of crazy. But then, if you're doing that, why not just use PhotoFly or Scanner Killer, take a 3D scan of the head, and, build a crazy beehive haircut in 3D. Why not?
I think they're already doing that, actually. I mean, you can't go to some salons and actually get a mock-up of what your hair's going to look like.
Yeah, they use Photoshop stuff, really simple Photoshop stuff for that, I think.
Yeah, actual programs. Yeah.
Well, so I was thinking also, why doesn't she you could actually take that to the next level where you have the salon and you have a 3D motion tracker on the forehead and let RTT Delta Gen put a real-time 3D hair live video feed on the head.
How much is this haircut going to cost?
Well, Delta Gen's going to have to go down in price a little bit. Sorry, RTT, a little hint there.
Fine, yes, we get it. But now we have to get on to more pressing matters.
Like the fact that I've been pressing your face against the desk for the entire conversation.
Look, my neck hurts. Would you please let up? As you know, today we sat down with Joe Moak, senior product designer and creator of formlovesfunction.com.
We brought him on because he is Joe Moak.
So, Joe, we have a few questions for you, buddy.
And the IV connected to your neck is feeding a powerful truth serum directly into your middle cerebral artery.
All right, Joe, so first, tell us a little bit about your background and how you got where you are today.
Yeah, I went to school at Cal Poly, studied mechanical engineering. I did an internship at Arterial Vascular Engineering.
Wow.
Nice. Later bought out by Medtronic, which got a little medical device experience on my resume. And when I was graduating, I got a lot of interest from medical device companies. And medical device experience. Started at a school at a defibrillator company called St. Jude. Then I went over to a company that was making a neural implant, and I worked there for 5.5 years and learned to be super anal and particular about all my details.
Yeah.
And I've been doing consumer products for the last 5.5 years or so.
Fantastic. So we've talked a lot on EVD about designers and engineers who kind of live in that space between design and engineering. But you take that to a whole new level with your, Form Loves Function blog and your work. So for you, the engineering and design parts of the process are inextricably linked. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. When I think about the products that I really love, and like the products that in my mind have kind of got it right.
I would love to know what those are.
Well, I have an Aprilia SXV 550.
Ooh.
That I love to ride around, and that just seems like a beautiful piece of engineering. You know, I mean, it looks mean. The motor is mean. It rides mean. Like, it just is kind of a unified symbol of power that delivers on the message that it sends when you look at it. And I consider that like a well-delivered product, engineering-wise and design-wise. And, in my experience, those kinds of products come about through this sort of, hard work from both the engineer and the designer, and kind of a mutual respect. I know that it's fun to pit designers against engineers because the two come from two completely different mindsets.
Are you about to tear down the premise of our show? Because I'm going to have to stop you right there.
No, so designers and engineers must fight. I totally agree.
Yes.
So that's where my head is at. And then with Form Loves Function, I'm just I'm attempting to appeal to both mindsets.
Well, I think you definitely do that. I'm the designer on the show, and I friggin' love your site. So.
Oh, awesome. That's inspiration for me to post a little more often.
Okay, so, I mean, this is a totally different question. But it's kind of related. It seems increasingly that the realm of invention is thought of as more about soft UI experiences on digital screens than about hard physical interactions with objects. And I'm just wondering, is it really ideal for hardware to get out of the way and purely be a vehicle for pixel-based interaction, or is there still a place for physical user experience design in products?
Wow.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, just take one aspect, haptic feedback.
Sure.
Right, like how the product feels in your hand, or when you're sitting on a chair, for example, or hell, even on a motorcycle, right?
Yep.
These are all really important aspects of the user experience, and there's a lot of innovation around, like you say, the software and like the on-screen UI. But I totally believe that's only half the picture at best.
So Form Loves Function does have a lot of videos lately about old school machines, like the 100-year-old IBM clocks, the CAN-based machining, and a really fun piece explaining how iron is refined from 1938. And yet your work is designing high-tech gadgets, using high-tech manufacturing techniques. Could you talk a little bit about that dichotomy?
Yeah, in my head, there's not a ton of difference between the two, and that's kind of like, I looked at that the steel, the iron refining video, and I thought, man, you know what, like, some of the machinery is a little different, but this process is pretty much dialed in, and was dialed in, years ago. And the steel that we're getting today is kind of going through the same process. The equipment has changed a little bit, but for the most part, the fundamentals are all the same. And then I realized, we talked a little bit about open source design, and that the book, being mostly about design process. And, the process has changed so little. And I just love this notion that there's like these, underlying fundamentals somewhere. Like if you ask enough questions and dig deep enough, you can find like these simple rules of like physics, rules of nature that are really stable over time and pretty relevant.
Fantastic. Joe Moak, having you on the show has been better than that time I swept Mustache-toberfest with the creepiest mustache award. Thanks so much for being with us.
That is fantastic. Thanks for having me, guys. It's been fun. Hopefully we can chat more in the future.
Oh man, I really do hope so.
Okay, if you would like to send a horsehead kebab to EVD HQ, please address it to Adam.
And if you want to send us cow tongues, please send those to Josh. EngineerVsDesigner is a lot like a cow, except we need comments instead of cud. Please give us some feedback on EngineerVsDesigner.com. Insults welcome.
If you desperately wish you could drop kick us in the grapes, be sure to like us, +1 us, follow us, or whatever else, as social media has also been correlated with negative reproductive side effects.
Special thanks to Ross at rotsharton.com for the blues licking going on in the background.
Go Ross. We'll see you next week, and remember, without engineers, designers would have mirrors instead of computer monitors and stare at themselves all day.
And without designers, engineers would punch themselves repeatedly all day long.
Snuffleupagus.
Baby bop.